Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Tal Hazak-Lowy, and I'm the Executive Director of Friends of the Children Chicago. We're absolutely thrilled that you're all joining us today for the information session to let you know how you all can refer families to be part of Friends of the Children Chicago. We have some members of our team here with me today that you'll hear from for most of the presentation. So I'd like to introduce Melanie Adams, our Program Director. Wave hi, Melanie. We have Felix Combois and Luxon Emmanuel that are two of our program managers. And Fallon Carpenter, who is our family and community engagement specialist. So say hey, Fallon. Good. I want to start you all on a, and I do want to acknowledge that Julie Weiland, one of our board members, is here. So hi, Julie, thank you for being here. We're going to take you all through a PowerPoint presentation. Feel free to put questions that you have into the chat. And then we will answer them at the end. Melanie will be hosting a question answer session at the end, and we'll be able to address all questions. So I am going to share. Oh, hold on, no. Okay, can you all see my screen? Can I get a thumbs up? Great. Okay, so Friends of the Children. So our goal, our mission is to break the generational cycle of poverty in Chicago, one child at a time. We're part of a national network. Friends of the Children's been around for about 30 years. It started in Portland, Oregon. And actually, as of today, we just learned that a 25th location is opening up in Phoenix, Arizona. Chicago was the 15th chapter to launch, and we just launched in 2018. Because we're part of a program that has 30 years of experience, we know this model works. 92% of the youth that go through our program go on to enroll in post-secondary education, serve in the military, or enter full-time employment. And now I'd like to turn it over to Luxon.
Thank you, Tal. One of the things that I really love and enjoy about our program is the ability for us to get to know our kids on a very personal level. We basically become integrated parts of their family. And one of the things that we focus in on when we first meet our kids is that we want to find out what's their dreams, what's their goals, what do they aspire to be when they grow up. And it's amazing to hear their stories and the things that they love and they're passionate about. I love listening to them talk about how they want to be the NBA basketball star. We've talked about how they want to be YouTube stars and TikTokers. We've talked about how they want to become professional police officers, or they want to become firefighters. And it's amazing to see that they have these aspirations. And we talk to the families and figure out what do they want for their kids also. One of the things that as we talk to them and we learn more about our youths that we begin to see is that they have these goals, but there are things in their way. There are things that are really not just speed bumps, there are straight doors and walls that can prevent them from success. And some of these things are listed here on the slide. We know that a kid that wants to aspire to be great and wants to get A's, if they're going to school hungry, how can they think about what the teacher's teaching if they're sitting there in the classroom with their stomach growling? We face kids. I have a youth that wants to be a basketball player that I'm going to talk to about in a few minutes. How can he become that basketball player if mom doesn't have the finances to get him into camps and get him into basketballs, things that he needs that can help him to get those things. And speaking of one of my youths, this is an amazing kid, as you can see with the smile on the face. We're here at a Chicago White Sox baseball game. He's one of the kids that can walk into any room, sit down with any adult and have a full-on conversation with, right? He can walk into a room full of people and captivate everyone, have everyone focus in on him. He's talked about becoming a basketball player, but I've told him, you know, once you begin to see these kids and you see their strengths, I've told him, I think you could become a US Senator because of the way you have the ability to talk and connect with people. I've told him you could become an ESPN announcer. You've got great, amazing talent and skills, right? Unfortunately, his story is one that is filled with, as we were looking at the list of those 6 things that obstacles that our youth face, he's one that has pretty much every one of those things listed, right? Just now, right before I got on the phone call, his mom was texting back and forth because once again, she's planning to move again. And this will be like the 5th or 6th time that he's moved within the last year alone. And so there's, because of that, he has a lot of roadblocks, a lot of things that can prevent him from getting his goals and meeting his aspirations, getting simple good grades in school, because he's got so much going on at home right now. And so one of the things that I love, another thing that I really, and because of all this trauma, right, and all these issues that he's dealing with, it leads to issues that he might end up facing later on in life if something doesn't happen for him, right? Early parenting, involvement in crime, poor mental health, poor physical health, high school dropout. Like, these are all issues he can face if all this trauma, all these roadblocks that he's facing aren't met head on. And one of the things, another thing, so I really do love Friends of the Children, right? I like, it's an amazing organization that I wasn't looking for, just fell into my lap and I'm like running into it. And one of the things that they do really well is that they do research, right? We're not just out here just throwing darts at the wall. We're not just trying things to try things. We literally bring in the best of the best to sit down and talk to them. We've done research. And one of the things that research shows is that if these youths that are facing these huge obstacles, if they just have one supportive relationship, a person that's stable, a person that's nurturing, a caring adult, it can change the trajectory of their lives, right? And so Bruce Perry talks about it, and it doesn't have to just be one person. We're talking about Bruce Perry. Dr. Bruce Perry discusses, he says that if they have multiple, so this is me working along with mom, this is me working along with his teacher, this is me working along with his aunt, because of all of us supporting him, nurturing him, carrying him, those obstacles that Roland might have had to face, he can overcome them and become even greater in life, right? And so one of the things we'll talk now, I'll let the other program manager, Felix Combois, talk a little bit more about it, is how do we help him? How do we help the youth? And who are we selecting to become these friends that will help the youth?
Thank you so much, Luxon. And thank you so much, guys, for being here to support us and to just learn a little bit about what we do. Yeah, so like Toss said, Friends with the Children, the program really truly does work. And what we do is we select children that are facing the most obstacles, and we pair them with a professional mentor, who we call friend. So Luxon, Ms. Melanie, Ms. Fallon, and myself, we all have been friends before, and we really love what we do. So we commit to each one of our children for 12 and a half years, no matter what. And during that time, our children cannot do anything that will kick them out of the program. So that could be behavior-wise, that could be academically. They can never do anything that will get them kicked out of our program. Like Luxon said, we have a family that can be moving. Our family move often. So as long as they're within 1 hour drive from the west side of Chicago, we can still see them. And we expect that our families, our children will work with at least 3 to 5 mentors within their time here. So the 12 and a half years. Yep. And this is our new team, right? Here we have a program manager, a program director, and each one of us here, we have at least a bachelor's degree. And some of us have advanced education as well. So One thing that is common within all of us, besides the degree, is we all have at least 2 years working directly with children. And just this couple of years, we received the Bob Biden seal of approval protection working with our children. So safety is a priority for us whenever we are with our children. Each one of us goes through an extensive background. And like Lexon said, we are research-based. We go through a lot of training in order to serve our families. And so what do we do with our friends when with our children, when we're with them? First and foremost, each one of us has at least, each one of our friends has at least 8 children that they work with on their roster. And when we're with them, we introduce them to new things. We take care of them socially, emotionally, and we also work with them on their homework, so education-wise as well. And so we identify our children in kindergarten. So that's like 4 to 6 years. And we believe that this is very, very, very important because at the very young age, we can help them build a very strong foundation. And again, each child is paired with a professional mentor that we call friend. And we commit to them for 12 and a half years, no matter what. Again, within that time, they can never do anything that will kick them out of our program. And we're very, very intentional working with our children. So that means when we take them out on an outing, whether it be to the Children's Museum, whether it be to a park, whether it be to trying new food, there's always a lesson packed within the outing. So that's the intention of focusing on what the child needs at that moment, and then introduce them to new experiences that can teach them a lesson within that experience. And so we are involving our children's life, whether in academic, we are there with them in school, also in their community or at home as well. And so you can see that we are in our children's life, but also the parents come with them as well. Without our parents supporting our children, we can never really have our kids. So the caregiver, very, very important. And we introduce our caregiver to also life experience, different experiences as well. Whether if they would like to come in our outing with us, sometimes we take them just to see what we do with their children, to build trust in there as well. So we provide resources to our family, whether that be, whether that be just any type of training that they may need. So that could be job training, that could be financial literacy training as well. So we introduce it to a lot of things. At the end of the day, Friends of the Children truly is there to just take care of our parents, to take care of our children. And truly what we see here, we become pretty much a big family with our family. And we do have a new position that we just rolled out this year, like Tal said at the very beginning. So it's a family engagement specialist. And I'll let Fallon take it from here.
Thanks, Felix. So as Felix stated, we try to identify the children that have the greatest risk factors with the least protective factors in their lives. So some of you may be familiar with the term ACEs, which is adverse childhood experiences. And that's potentially traumatic events that occur in a child's life. So these are some examples of things that can occur in a child's life: physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, domestic violence, parental substance abuse, mental illness, suicide or death, or crime, or imprisoned family members. So we know that when children are exposed to these kinds of events, it can take a toll on them mentally, physically, emotionally, and it can impact their life overall. So this chart shows that it's a health risk, because when you're dealing with these different kinds of issues, it affects your sleep, it affects what you eat, it affects your whole body. So we want to identify the children who are impacted by these types of events, because we know that pairing them with someone or having someone in their life that can kind of help offset some of this, just give them, the family and the kids, some of that support will be beneficial and help them overcome some of these situations. And if not overcome, at least cope with it, so that they can become successful and be productive citizens. Protective factors are conditions or attributes of individuals, families, and communities that promote healthy development and well-being. So that's social, emotional competence, concrete support in times of need, support of social connections, and knowledge of parent and child development. We know that a lot of our families may not have these types of skills or have this kind of support. So we know that going into this program, that the child would be surrounded by a community being the mentor, the family engagement specialist. We will help them with that support and help them have those protective factors.
All right. Thanks, Fallon. And just like the team said, like most of our work is really based in the community, it's based in the schools, and it's based in the homes of our children. Our children, we enroll them within the ages of 4 to 6, that's kindergarten. So a child must be enrolled at that time so that we can really measure that long-term commitment that we make, that 12 and a half years. So we have to start at that early elementary age. The children that we are enrolling primarily are on the west side of Chicago, in the North Lawndale and Austin communities. Currently, that's where we start with all of our children. However, as my team members stated, our families are pretty transient. So if they move to the suburbs or to the south side, we follow them and we're able to expand our impact. So that doesn't limit us, but we do ask that they start here and reside in this side of Chicago, or these two communities. And then finally, as Fallon stated, we look at the risk factors and compare those to the amount of protective factors that our families are exposed to. And that's how we select the families that are the best fit. All children, in my opinion, could benefit from having a mentor. However, it is a very small pool of children that we can select. So we want to make sure that we're choosing the families that are going to benefit the most from our program, so that we can make sure that we're serving the children to the best of our ability. So I know this was a lot of information that just came at you guys really fast. So first we'll just go through the actual process of what the referral is going to look like. And then we'll just kind of talk through just any questions that you all might have, and we'll just open it up. So, oh yes, and then we'll share the PowerPoint for sure. So first right now is the identification referral process. So these are the information sessions that we are inviting people to. And the second one will be on February 4th. We're going to send out a referral survey through SurveyMonkey to make it easier for people to just go through and answer this pre-screener questionnaire. If you're only involved in the family's lives in educational settings, then that's fine. Just answer it to the best of your abilities. If you don't know much about their home environment, again, just any information that you can provide will help us before we then reach out to follow up. So then between February 21st and March 4th, we're going to kind of go through all the referrals as a staff and then begin to do our outreach with our partner organizations. And then finally, March 4th through April 29th, we'll go ahead and do that outreach to the families. And so we'll invite participants to participate, or candidates to participate in Friends of the Children during those last weeks of March and April.
Hold on, my computer's stuck.
And so, again, like we just are committed to the 12 and a half years, no matter what. So as the team stated, there's nothing a child can do to get removed from our program. We're really intentional about the children that we serve. And more importantly, we know that we don't want to reinvent the wheel. If we are all a part of this community and we're all here to wrap our arms around our children, then that's why we are inviting our community partners into these spaces, so that we can all make sure that we're serving the same families and they're getting these wraparound services from us all. So we're more about possibilities than prevention. And so that's why we're here today, so that we can all partner together to just do best by our kids in our community. So thank you guys so much for coming. Let's just open it up for questions there.
Hi, I have a question. So when you are taking the kids out on different outings, is there a specific curriculum that you're working on like that week or that session? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Thank you, Julie. That's an excellent question. So here in Chicago, we do what we call mini goals. So our national program model focuses on 5 intermediate outcomes with children. We focus on 4 intermediate outcomes with children here in Chicago, but they're essentially the same as the national model. So there's school success, but here in Chicago, we call it literacy development. There's plans and skills for the future, which here in Chicago, we call building independence. There's making good choices and then improved health, which we combine and we call that self-awareness. And then there's, I think I'm forgetting one. Building independence, self-awareness, school success.
Pro-social development.
Pro-social development. That one hasn't changed. Thanks, Fallon. So those are the ones that we focus on with our children, making those different, focusing on those intermediate outcomes. And then the mentor has the freedom to create whatever type of activity or experiential learning experience for the child. So then you're able to go out in the community and actually create an experience for this child based off of whatever mini goal you set for that child. And then we also have the kids come in and co-collaborate. We talk with the parents like, hey, what sort of things do you want us to work on with your children, so that we're all partnering together and it's across the board working on something that that's going to be of interest to the child, but then it's also something that's going to help build them up to add to their toolbox of just awesomeness.
And I'll just add a little bit to that one. We also work closely with teachers. So if the teacher noticed that a youth is struggling in math, they can give us something that we can work with the youth using the activity to kind of like teach them in a different way.
Erica had a question.
Sure, thank you. I wonder if you can talk about how mentors navigate sort of growing that relationship with the individual child and with maybe siblings or like other family members. How does that sort of work over time, or how do you approach managing that as mentors?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I'll let other folks chime in too. I would say for me, we pride ourselves in building relationships on love, right? So before I even try to get you to read or get you to participate in any activity or be in class and sit still, like, let's make sure that there's trust here and there's a relationship here, that you know that I'm a person who's going to keep showing up for you and that I'm going to have your back regardless. And then once that foundation is set, then you can kind of start working on some more of those academic level type of goals with your kids. What I've also found in our line of work is that it is for the entire family, right? So it's impossible to think that you're going to just support this one child and make sure this one child is eating and is having a great experience when you know that there's other siblings in the home, when you know that maybe mom is hardworking and not able to be present all the time, but that's life, right? So I think being able to build those relationships and show up as your most authentic self and then be welcomed into our families is really where we start. And that's why even on the survey, you'll see there's questions that ask about the primary caregivers, about the other adults in the home, about other children in the home and the child's placement within that age range, because that matters too, right? Like if you have a kid who's smack dab in the middle and they're just fighting for some attention, like that's going to explain maybe some of the behaviors that you're seeing. But that attention is outside of the relationship. Like let's build that foundation first. And then even with our new family and community engagement position, that specialist position is now able to, if a mentor is becoming too much of the parent's mentor, which is something all of us have experienced, where we're serving the child, but it's kind of sliding into, I'm actually the parent's mentor, then now there's someone available to be able to support that family in more ways than the mentor, so that the mentor can, focus on the child, and then that family still receive the support or the services that they may require. Does anyone want to add to that? Because I know we've all had situations and
The one thing I would say and add on to it is that we do believe in a one-on-one model, which is very important to building relationships. It's important for our kids for us to just be in a space where they can be comfortable with us as a mentor and know that I'm gonna have Mr. Luxon's attention for the next 2 hours. I know that there's not another kid running around that he has to chase after. There's not other people, it's just Mr. Luxon and I. And I think that builds a lot of trust and bond between us because of that one-on-one model. And it allows us to work on a lot of little things that we wanna help build in our kids too also.
Just to add a little bit to what Luxon said. So once that relationship is established and the trust is established, let's say one of the youth has a brother that they're not getting along well. If there's a playground around their home, we can take them together so we can focus on that relationship together. So even though it's one-on-one, we established a strong relationship, but then we can also bring a sibling in there to help them kind of create a stronger foundation with their siblings.
Yeah, and just to touch on what everyone else said, like Melanie stated, you can't focus on the kid if the family is in disarray. So you have to focus on the family because that's the only way it's going to become whole. So in this position that I'm in, the goal is to bridge that gap. We have families. We know that our families don't trust systems. Most of our families, they're used to welfare system, social, any kind of system, the school system. Parents are not really trusting of it. So we have seen it and it has worked. We have become the bridge between the parents and some schools. Some parents have never came to the school to check on their kid, or the school feels some type of way about the parent, or the parent feels some type of way about the school. We've been able to be that in-between person to get them to come together and help that kid. So that in turn helps the whole family. It helps the mother or the father build trust with the school builds trust with the parent, and they can work so that this kid can have the best situation possible. And also just assisting the parent. We have parents who are very overwhelmed. If you can give them resources to help them cope and make things better, that makes the environment better for the kids. So it's really just about creating a community, not just the mentors, but just the organization as a community for our families. And that is the goal going forward, is to create that community, have parent groups where the parents can engage with each other and bounce ideas off each other, and they can support each other, have that support, and just have the families engaged with the organization so they don't feel left out. We have picnics and different events where the siblings can attend as well, so they don't feel like, oh, my brother has this person, what do I do? It's about bringing everybody so everybody feels like it's a family in the community. So going forward, that's the bigger goal, is to get everybody engaged, because yes, every kid can't have a mentor, but we can also include all the kids in different activities so they don't feel left out. So yeah, that's the goal.
I'm going to add one thing to that. Thank you, Fallon. That families can voluntarily sign up their child for our program, because if a kindergartner has an adult in their life that knows they should be in a mentoring program, they should be in a mentoring program, but not friends of the children. We're really trying to get to the families that schools have an issue connecting with, that don't trust systems, that have such trauma happening in their own life, that's why we know that you all in the referral organizations have identified these families, and then we want to make the connection that way. And to the point that what Luxon started with, like every single child everywhere has hopes and dreams for what they want to be. They all are full of potential. The difference is sort of what support system they have around them. And so the caregivers, to be clear, the parents and caregivers in our program love their children very, very much. They all want the best for their kids. And all of the parents and caregivers in our lives, most of them have unaddressed childhood trauma that they haven't had support from, which led to a bunch of negative outcomes for them. Many of them are struggling with mental health challenges, substance abuse, which can lead to criminal activity, etc. And so they're just trying to keep the tip of their nose out of water. And so they can't sometimes show up for their parent, not because they don't love their children, but because they have their own struggles. And so we come in to help support the parent, and we're there for when that parent is ready, willing, and able to make changes in their own life. But even if that parent isn't, we want to bond with that parent on their vision and dreams for their kids, because all of them have vision and dreams for their children as well.
So Tom, can
Laura.
I ask oh, sorry.
Thank you. I'm kind of new to the organization, but very impressed. I've been working with Tal and with Fallon for a while. Really excited about that. I'm just wondering, I guess if there's I know it sounds like there's a lot of competition to sort of get kids into the program. I'm wondering how tight that is. Um, I have two families that I'm working with at the kindergarten level this year that I'm interested in referring. And I'm just wondering what the likelihood might be, um, of them getting in, and if there's anything that I can do to kind of encourage a more positive response.
I would say, to be honest, we wish we could take all the kids, right? Like we want to be able to take all the kids. So I would say if you submit the referral survey questionnaire, like we're gonna as a team like comb through them all and reach back out to all of the organizations, just to ask more questions and to determine, which children are the best fit for our particular program. And thanks, Tal. So that's the Survey Monkey right there. So I would just encourage you to complete that as soon as possible. I guess the sooner you do it, the sooner we can review it. And then we're going to be following up within the next couple of weeks. So yeah. And then I don't know if Tal, you want to add anything to that?
No, it's exactly right. Like what we want to do is to make sure we're getting the right families. We trust you all. We don't know the exact number, but we're actually going to be filling about just over 20 positions. And so we just want to make sure we're getting to the right kids. So if you complete the referral thing, our hope is to take in as many kids as we possibly can.
I'm sorry, and just one quick thing too. The child that I'm working, the two children that I'm looking at have likelihood of having disabilities. One of them is a sibling pair, and there's some speech issues. I'm just wondering what and I know you work with the families, but what the expertise is or the training of people who work as mentors is when it comes to disabilities. And in this particular situation, I'm talking about like speech disabilities where the children have difficulty making themselves understood.
I think that's a good question. I'm glad you bring that up because I don't think we touched on it much in our presentation. But one of the pre-screening questions or the things that we have to find out before enrolling a child is to make sure that they're able to actually build and maintain a relationship with an adult. So that means like ensuring that they may not fall at a certain level on the autism spectrum, to make sure that they're able to build these relationships with other people. So that is something that we would have to address. But outside of that, like if it's just like a speech impediment, like that's something that we've dealt with. I think we've had it within our chapter, like having to connect a child with a speech pathologist and kind of help to make sure that they are being taught the way that they need to be taught in order to learn. But as far as disabilities, that I think is the only thing that we have to really be careful about with the building and maintaining relationships part.
Yeah, these I'm sorry, these would be children with expressive language difficulties, but still relational.
And so they'll follow up with you about the specifics. And so what I'll tell you is that we don't have expertise in all the issues that our kids and families are dealing with. We don't claim to have expertise in all the issues. But as a parent for my two daughters, I don't have expertise for all of their needs also, but I know how to identify when they help. I know how to identify when they need help, and then I go find the right resources from them. And so that's who and what we are for our families, because many of them have issues that we don't know. We're not equipped to address, the friends aren't trained to address, but we know how to identify those issues. And then we use our trusting relationship with the parent and caregiver to let them know we think this child needs help. And then we find the right community service organization or whatnot that needs help. Julie, you had a question for Melanie?
Actually, that's a perfect segue to my question. So I was going to ask about, I guess, referrals for both the kids and the parents. So like in the scenario that you just gave, like then what is kind of your relationship with the referred organization for the kids? Like, is there a way, I mean, obviously there may be HIPAA, but HIPAA regulations, but is there a way to like, keep in contact so you're both kind of working jointly on whatever the issue may be? And then also like for parents, again, while I realize this is not a program just for parents, like, is there a referral network that, allows you to kind of maintain contact, so that you're kind of supporting the parents appropriately as well?
Yeah, so so every year we do enrollment forms, and we do a re-enrollment form every year with our parents where they sign off on all of the different like policies or their parent rights and all the expectations that they can hold us to and what we expect of them. A part of that is like the school access and release information, like to make sure that we can communicate with schools about the child's, grades or tardiness, absences, those things. When it comes to healthcare, it will be the same. If the family signs off on a release, allowing us to gain access. Actually, over the summer, Fallon and I went to a session on behalf of a parent because she couldn't make it. And then Fallon went back to the home with her and sat down and went through the, I don't even remember what it was called. Do you remember what it was called, Fallon? It wasn't an IEP, but it was like an assessment. Yeah, it was like a universal assessment just to figure out if the child had any underlying things that were preventing her from learning. So they went over the speech, the hearing, how her brain really responded to different things. And mom trusted us enough to go and be a part of that meeting and then relay the information back to her. So we are able to do things like that for parents, but of course they have to give us permission to do that.
The other example I'll give you is we had a family that we worked with this summer. I'll call the girl's name Vanessa. I'll call her Vanessa. And we referred dad to work with the Institute for Nonviolence, and we referred mom to therapy at UCAN. And we were able to, mom was eventually kicked out of the UCAN program for lack of engagement because she wasn't showing up to therapy. And that's the problem with most of these programs are set up to help those that want to help themselves. But what happens if they get stuck? But the good thing about our no matter what commitment to our families is even though mom was kicked out of that one program, we just continue loving on her. And then we got her into another program. And so far she's been sticking with that, which is fantastic. And when dad, we got involved in the Institute for Nonviolence, when we suspected that he was having a lot of troubles and we saw trouble at the home, we were able to reach out to the Institute for Nonviolence to ask them to make sure that they shore up support for him. And so again, it doesn't always lead. The sad thing is that dad ended up being killed by gun violence a few months later, but we were working to coordinate. So that does happen whenever it's possible.
These are really good questions. Any more thoughts just about the process or the youth that we identify?
I didn't raise my hand, but I do have a question. So I noticed on one of the slides, you indicated that you're currently just identifying families on the West Side. I guess I'm wondering maybe why, and then also, well, I'm also thinking about our setting, which is shelters, and a lot of times people come from one community in the part of the city, but are relocated to or referred to a shelter in another part of the city. So I'm just wondering if there's any flexibility there as far as the referral process or anything like that. I'm just wondering about that.
That's a good question. I'm gonna let Tal take that one.
Yeah, so we started on the West Side because when we were launching in 2018, at that time, George Sheldon was the head of DCFS and they were entering into an agreement with us to work with kids in the foster care system. And then we got connected with Darnell Shields at Awesome Coming Together. And then the Staines Foundation funded us in North Lawndale. And so we set up our roots on the West Side. We're sticking primarily to the West Side right now when families at least originally start on the West Side. only because when we are in a community, we want to build relationships with other organizations on the west side. So we have those relationships, right? So we have a pediatrician, a family doctor on the call as well. So thank you, Dr. Friedman, for being here. You know, like we create relationships with different people. And so it just makes us better support for our families. And our families, as someone mentioned before, tend to be very transient. And as long as they move within a loose hour's drive of the west side of Chicago, we stick with them. So we have families that have moved the far south side to Aurora or Bolingbrook or all sorts of other communities. And so, Erica, I would still encourage you to fill out your referral forms for the families you're thinking about, and Melanie will reach out to you and we'll talk it through. Because if a family's in a shelter and they're in your shelter that's not on the west side, but they at one point lived on the west side, let us know, right? Because our top priority is to make sure we're getting to the right families. And we'll work with you however we can. And if we can't, we'll let you know the reason. I'm just going to reshare my slide just to put up the, hold on. I just want you guys to have Melanie's email address also if you have follow-up questions. Wait, where's, oh, it's not on here. Okay, I'll put it in the chat, sorry. Okay, and then that's the end of our presentation. We'll be staying on here in case anybody has any questions, but I'm putting Melanie's information at the chat. She's going to be your best resource, but you can also always reach out to me as well. And then just make sure you fill out that referral form. I'll be sending you the PowerPoint slides so that you can just access them if you want to see things. And really, the more questions you have, I think that the more impressed you'll be with our work. And we just spread the word to other organizations that you think can be potential referrals, because we really, really want to work with our community partners, because we believe that you have connections with the families that we should be working with. Thank you, everyone.
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to find that that referral in the chat again. Is that going to be, in case I misplace it, is that part of the PowerPoint? The link.
It's in the PowerPoint, and I'll put it in the thank you email also, so you just have it. It's
okay,
in big
perfect.
letters, like what to apply, and people can fill out the referral for the next 2 weeks. So, and you'll see it's, I think, 15 questions, so it shouldn't take longer than 5 to 10 minutes to complete. And then Melanie or someone on the team will reach out to you and we'll just get more information. And our goal is to be as responsive as possible. And then we'll start the outreach to gain the trust. Melanie and her team will be reaching out to the families that we identified to gain their trust to get them to voluntarily enroll in our program.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.